So in an age of infinite leverage, judgment becomes the most important skill. Warren Buffett is so wealthy now because of his judgment. Even if you were to take away all of Warren's money, tomorrow investors would come out of the woodwork and hand him $100 billion because they know his judgment is so good. And they would give him a big chunk of that $100 billion to invest. So ultimately, everything else that you do is actually setting you up to apply your judgment. We are now living in an age of nearly infinite leverage, and all the great fortunes are created through leverage. So your first job is to go and obtain leverage. And you can obtain leverage through permission by taking risks and getting people to work for you, or by raising capital, or you can get leverage permissionlessly by learning how to code or becoming a good communicator in podcasting, broadcasting, creating videos, writing, etc. So that's how you get leverage. But once you have leverage, what do you do with it? Well, the first part of your career is spent hustling to get leverage. Once you have the leverage, then you want to slow down a bit because your judgment really matters. It's like you've gone from steering your sailboat around to now you're steering an ocean liner or a tanker. You have a lot more at risk, but you have a lot more to gain as well. You're carrying a much higher payload. So in an age of infinite leverage, judgment becomes the most important skill. Warren Buffett is so wealthy now because of his judgment. Even if you were to take away all of Warren's money, tomorrow investors would come out of the woodwork and hand him $100 billion because they know his judgment is so good. And they would give him a big chunk of that $100 billion to invest. So ultimately, everything else that you do is actually setting you up to apply your judgment. One of the big things that people rail on is CEO pay. And for sure, there's crony capitalism that goes on where these CEOs control their boards and the boards give them too much money. But there's certain CEOs who definitely earn their keep because their judgment is better. If you're steering a big ship, if you're steering Google or Apple, and your judgment is 10 or 20% better than the next person's, society will literally pay you hundreds of millions of dollars more because you're steering a $100 billion ship. If you're on course 10 or 20% of the time more often than the other person, the compounding results on that hundreds of billions of dollars you're managing will be so large that your CEO pay will be dwarfed in comparison. So demonstrated judgment, credibility around the judgment is so critical. Warren Buffett wins here because he has massive credibility. He's been highly accountable. He's been right over and over in the public domain. He's built a reputation for very high integrity, so you can trust him. So a person like that, people will throw infinite leverage behind him because of his judgment. Nobody asks him how hard he works. Nobody asks him when he wakes up or when he goes to sleep. They're like, Warren, just do your thing. So especially demonstrated judgment with high accountability, clear track record is critical.
Let's define judgment. I would define it as knowing the long-term effects of your decisions or being able to predict the long-term effects of your decisions.
It's funny. My definition of wisdom is knowing the long-term consequences of your actions. So they're not all that different. Wisdom is just judgment on a personal domain. Wisdom applied to external problems, I think, is judgment. So they're highly linked. But yes, it's knowing the long-term consequences of your actions and then making kind of the right decision to capitalize on that. Judgment is very hard to build up. This is where both intellect and experience come in play. There are many problems with the so-called intellectuals in the ivory tower, but one of the reasons why Nassim Taleb rails against them is because they have no skin in the game. They have no real world experience, right? So they just apply purely intellect. And intellect without any experience is often worse than useless because you get the confidence that the intellect gives you and you get some of the credibility. But because you had no skin in the game and you had no real experience and no real accountability, you're just throwing darts. The real world is always far, far more complex than we can intellectualize. And especially all the interesting, fast-moving edge domains and problems, you can't get there without experience. So if you are smart and you iterate fast, so it's not even you put 10,000 hours into something, but you take 10,000 tries at something. If you are smart and you have a lot of quick iterations and you try to keep your emotions out of it, the people with the best judgment are actually among the least emotional. A lot of the best investors are considered almost robotic in that regard. But I wouldn't be surprised if even the best entrepreneurs often come across as unemotional. There is sort of this archetype of the passionate entrepreneur. And yeah, they have to care about what they're doing, but they also have to see very clearly what's actually happening. And the thing that prevents you from seeing what's actually happening are your emotions. Our emotions are constantly clouding our judgment. And in investing or in running companies or in building products or being an entrepreneur, emotions really get in the way. Emotions are what prevent you from seeing what's actually happening. until you can no longer resist the truth of what's happening, until it becomes too sudden, and then you're forced into suffering, which is sort of a breaking of this emotional fantasy that you had put together.
To try and connect some of these concepts, I would say that first, you're accountable for your judgment. Judgment is the exercise of wisdom. Wisdom comes from experience, and that experience can be accelerated through short iterations.
And the reason why a lot of the top investors, a lot of the value investors, if you read Jeremy Grantham or you read Warren Buffett, you read up on Michael Burry, these people sound like philosophers, or they are philosophers, or they're reading a lot of history books or science books. Like, what are they doing? Shouldn't they be reading investment books? No, investment books are the worst place to learn about investment, because investment is a real world activity that is highly multivariate. All the advantages are always being competed away. It's always on the cutting edge. So what you actually just need is very, very broad-based judgment and thinking. And the best way to do that is to study everything, including a lot of philosophy. And philosophy also makes you more stoic, makes you less emotional. And so you make better decisions. You have better judgment. One simple thing is I go out on Twitter, and it seems like half of Twitter is outrageous something at all times. You can go within someone's Twitter feed and get at least some semblance of what it must be like to be in their head all the time. And the more outraged somebody is, I guarantee you, the worse their judgment is. If someone's constantly tweeting political outrage and seems like an angry person getting into fights, you don't want to hand this person the keys to your car, let alone the keys to your company.
Do you have a lot of guys coming to you for advice? Like,
yes.
Hey, I want to be like MrBeast.
Actually, here, can you pull up my Twitter? I have something cool I want to show them. I mentor YouTubers a lot. You'll probably find this cool. One of the people I've been mentoring recently, he was doing $24,000 a month, and then he recently had a $400,000 a month on YouTube. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I tweeted out the before and after of his revenue. And so, yeah, just click on that left image. So this was before I started mentoring him. He was doing 4.6 million views a month, 24 grand. And then probably like 7-8 months into it, we got him up to 45 million views, and he had a $400,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what kind of advice are you giving someone like that makes such an exponential change in the amount of interactions you get?
The biggest thing is, it's much easier, as weird as this sounds, it's much easier to get 5 million views on one video than 100,000 views on 50 videos. Does that make sense a little bit? Like, a lot of people, you could upload one great video a year and get more views than if you uploaded 100 mediocre videos. It's like, it's very exponential. Like, essentially, now I'm going to dial back. To do well on YouTube, you just need people to click your videos and watch them. That's literally all YouTube wants. And so if you get people to click your video 10% more and watch your video 10% longer than mine, you don't get 10% more views. You get like 4 times the views, right? So you have to think like an exponential, right? Like a 10% better video is 4 times the views, not 10% more views.
Right.
And so like once you understand that and you like funnel your energy better, it makes a big difference. So it's usually like just like, don't make your video shit. Put in effort. Put in way more effort. Like really hyper obsess over these videos. Like triple the amount of time you're putting into that video, because you're not going to get triple the views. You're going to get 10x the views. And because YouTube's trying to serve people the best content possible, right? They don't want to serve you 100 lame videos. They just want to serve you one good one. So it makes sense logically. Like your homepage is the curated the best videos possible. And so it's really just like making these videos really, really good, helping them build out a little bit of team, like an editor, because if you're doing 5 jobs, then you can only put 20% of your time to each. Well, if you hire an editor, he can put 100% of his time into that. So even if he's like 20% worse than you, he's still going to do a way better job just because that's where all his time's going, and he's able to obsess over it. Like you can't spend 10 hours a day editing, but he can.
Have you always had this logical, analytical approach to things like this?
Yeah, I love this stuff. Yeah, this is what I live for. So it's like kind of going through and doing that for everything. And usually, like in his case, he's uploading less, and even though he's making over 10 times more. It's with less videos, ironically. So, and the videos are just better, and the fans are happier. Everything about it is just better.
So you mentored this guy. Did you know him previously?
I did. I knew him a little bit. He's always had great thumbnails, but he wasn't the best at making good videos. Those are the easiest people to mentor. They can get people to click, but they can't get people to stick around. So then I've obsessed over how to make good videos. So now I just teach them how to make a video good, and then boom, the channel just goes skyrockets.
But how do you have time to mentor people with all the things on your plate?
I find it fun. For me, it's kind of like therapeutic to go on a walk, call someone, and then just roast their channel.
Is that what you do? You roast their channel?
Well, like not meanly, but it's just like, yeah. Like,
just honestly.
Yeah, I'm like, I can tell you're a little lazy here. Like you could have put a little bit more effort. The hook was a little weak. Like You know, like
Wow.
why didn't you do this, or the payoff or whatever.
And you don't ask anything of them? You just...
Him? No, I don't own any of his channel. I just did it for fun.
That's a wild thing to do, man. That's so cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, he's gonna kill it. I think he could go on to make.
Who is this guy?
I don't. The thing is,
You wanna say it?
Yeah, exactly. Because some people
Okay.
know who he is, and then they're gonna be like, "Oh, you're really successful because of MrBeast," which I don't want.
Oh, right. Well,
Yeah.
look at you. Good
Yeah.
for you, man. So you just look at that as an exercise.
Yeah, it's fun. I do that for a lot of people. It's just I don't know. It also
How
like
many's a lot?
probably like 6 or 7. It's always rotating. It's also like I'm like me playing evil mad scientist. Like I tell them things, and then I kind of see how the theories work on their channel, and like confirm what I know. And it's like, oh, yeah, it is true. His stats went up 10%, his views 5x. I've done podcasts where I've literally laid out exactly how to go viral, every little thing I know, and they're just sitting out there. And it's funny because people will listen to them and then like just explode on YouTube and make tons of money. And it's just kind of funny because it's literally just out there. And like some people will still pay hundreds of dollars for a YouTube course or anything. So the difference between a video on YouTube, and this is where I can go infinitely in depth, the difference between a video with 1 million views or 10 million views usually isn't that like the 10 million view video, or actually a better example would be 1 million views and 30 million views. The video with 30 million views usually didn't put in 30 times the effort. Like they might have put in 2 or 3 times the effort and just had a way better idea. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so once you kind of understand that, which I understood, I kind of started to understand that like when I was 19, you realize that like the idea is so freaking important. Like you could, theoretically, most YouTubers watching this, you could pull triple the views with half the work if you just had better ideas. Like no joke, it's that extreme. And so once you realize how important an idea is, you just obsess over, well, how do I get more ideas? How do I get better ideas? If you envision a world where you're trying to be great at something and it's just like you learning and fucking up and then learning from your mistakes. You know, you mess up, you learn from your mistake, you mess up, you learn from your mistake. You in 2 years, might have learned from 20 mistakes. Or if you have like 4 other people who are also messing up, and when they learn from their mistake, they teach you what they learn, stuff like that. Hypothetically, you 2 years down the road have learned like 5 times more of the amount of stuff. So it just like helps you grow exponentially way quicker, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does.
But my firm belief is that life success really boils down to how do you control your mistakes? Now, this is a bit counterintuitive. The way you control your mistakes is by making a lot of mistakes.
So taking risks
You have to.
is somehow
You have to.
a
You
way
have
to minimize the number of mistakes.
Let's just say you want to find love.
Yeah.
You want to find somebody
Go
that
on.
you're deeply connected with.
Yeah.
Do you do that by not going out on dates and
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry.
You're the
Sorry.
only person that
Sorry.
thinks that's the answer to that
No,
question.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, but you
That's
know what
it.
I mean? Like you have to date people, you have to open yourself up, you have to be authentic, and like you give yourself a chance to get hurt.
Yes.
But you're a good person. So you know what happens when you get hurt? That is actually their mistake. Okay? And if you are inauthentic, that's your mistake. That's a controllable thing in you. You can tell them the truth, who you are, and say, here's my pluses and minuses. My point is, there are very few things in life that you can't break down, I think, into that very simple idea. And in terms of your mistakes, society tells you don't make them because we will judge you and we will look down on you. And I think the really successful people realize that actually, no, it's the cycle time of mistakes that gets you to success. Because your error rate will diminish the more mistakes that you make. You observe them, you figure out where it's coming from. Is it a psychological thing? Is it a, cognitive thing? And then you fix it.
So the implied thing there is that there's in business and investing, in poker, in dating, in life, is that there's this platonic GTO, game theory optimal thing out there. And so when you say mistakes, you're always comparing to that optimal path you could have taken.
I think slightly different. I would say mistake is maybe a bad proxy, but it's the best proxy I have for learning. But I'm using the language of what society tells you.
Sure. Got it.
Society tells you that when you try something and it doesn't work, it's a mistake. So I just use that word because it's the word that resonates most with most people.
Got it.
The real thing that it is learning.
Yeah, it's like in neural networks, it's lost.
It's a neural network. It's lost. Exactly.
Yeah, right. So you're using the mistake that is most, the word that is most understandable, especially by the way people experience it. I guess most of life is a sequence of mistakes. The problem is when you use the word mistake and you think about mistakes it actually has a counterproductive effect of you becoming conservative in just being risk averse. So that's if you flip it and say try to maximize the number of successes, somehow that leads you to take more risk. Mistake scares people.
I think mistakes scare people because society likes these very simplified boundaries of who is winning and who is losing. And they want to reward people who make traditional choices and succeed. But the thing is, what's so corrosive about that is that they're actually not even being put in a position to actually make a quote unquote mistake and fail. I mean, if you look at this very famous placard that Facebook had from back in the day, what did it say? It said, move fast and break things.
Mm-hmm.
In societal language, that's saying make mistakes as quickly as you can. Because the minute you break something, you don't do that by design. It's not a feature. Theoretically, it's a bug. But he understood that, and we embraced that idea. I used to run this meeting once a week where the whole goal was, I want to see that there was 1,000 experiments that were run and show me them all from the dumbest to the most impactful. And we would go through that loop. And what did it train people? Not that you got celebrated for the right answer, but you got celebrated for trying. I ran 12 experiments, 12 failed, and we'd be like, you're the best. Okay, let's just use poker as a microcosm to explain a bunch of other systems or games. Maybe it's running a company or investing. Okay, so let's use those 3 examples, but we use poker to explain it. What does success look like? Well, success looks like you have positive expected value, right? In poker, the simple way to summarize that is your opponent, let's just say you and I are playing, are going to make a bunch of mistakes. There's a bunch of it that's going to be absolutely perfect. And then there's a few spots where you make mistakes. And then there's a bunch of places in the poker game where I play perfectly and I make a few mistakes. Basically, your mistakes minus my mistakes is the edge, right? Mm-hmm. That's how poker works. If I make fewer mistakes than you make, I will make money and I will win. That is the objective of the game. Translate that into business. You're running a company. You have a team of employees. You have a pool of human capital that's capable of being productive in the world and creating something. But you are going to make mistakes in making that. Maybe it doesn't completely fit the market. Maybe it's mispriced. Maybe it actually doesn't require all of the people that you need, so the margins are wrong. And then there's the competitive set of all the other alternatives that customer has. Their mistakes minus your mistakes is the expected value of Google, Facebook, Apple, etc. Okay? Now take investing. Every time you buy something, somebody else on the other side is selling it to you. Is that their mistake? We don't know yet. But their mistakes minus your mistakes is how you make a lot of money over long periods of time as an investor. Somebody sold you Google at $40 a share. You bought it and you kept it. Huge mistake on their part, minimum mistakes on your part. The difference of that is the money that you made. So life can be summarized in many ways in that way. So the question is, what can you do about other people's mistakes? And the answer is nothing. That is somebody else's game. You can try to influence them. You could try to subvert them. Maybe you plant a spy inside of that other person's company to sabotage them. I guess there are things at the edges that you can do. But my firm belief is that life success really boils down to how do you control your mistakes?
Reflections. Caveats on experience knowledge. One caveat that I would add is that this iterative process of trying, making mistakes and learning from them is not the way to go when the stakes are high and mistakes are consequential. When mistakes are consequential, it's not time to do trial and error. It's time to demonstrate good judgment by minimizing mistakes. Trial and error isn't really trial and error. Trial and error is trial with small error. Nassim Taleb. Renowned investor Vinod Khosla mentions that the willingness to fail is what enables success, and failures don't matter if they are manageable. So in a high-stakes scenario, he is not suggesting this attitude of being willing to fail. Also, Chamath Palihapitiya mentions that under high-stakes circumstances, you must focus on avoiding mistakes. To sum up and see this clearly, let's see the two extremes. Mistakes are not consequential in the output. Absolutely focus on trial and error. It's time to gain experience and build judgment. Stakes are high or mistakes are very consequential. Absolutely focus on not making mistakes. It's time to demonstrate judgment. Expanding on the mindset of being unemotional. The following are my 3 favorite quotes from Stoicism. Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens. Then you will be happy. Seneca. A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. Marcus Aurelius. Objective judgment. Now at this very moment. Unselfish action. Now at this very moment. Willing acceptance. Now at this very moment. Of all external events. That's all you need. Marcus Aurelius. As we can see, Stoicism is not only helpful for being more unemotional, but also to develop a better character, live more passionate, and cultivate an opportunistic mindset towards any adversity in the way. Dropping the ego. The hard thing is seeing the truth. To see the truth, you have to get your ego out of the way because your ego doesn't want to face the truth. The smaller you can make your ego, the less conditioned you can make your reactions, the less desires you can have about the outcome you want, the easier it will be to see the reality. This is an excerpt from the book The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. As we can see, dropping one's ego is really important because even if we iterate many times, we still need to objectively reflect on each iteration if we want to truly learn to build experience knowledge. Also, I think that one's ego causes to increase the cycle time of any iteration, the opposite of what we want, because it will refuse as much as possible that there is anything wrong about what you're doing, until of course you can't avoid it any longer and you are faced to admit that it was not the correct path. Being right feels great in the immediate moment, but in the long term you will be far from being exceptional at anything, because you would compound experience knowledge at just an average rate. To compound experience knowledge at the highest rate, you cannot give a damn about being right. The only thing that should matter to you is truth seeking, as fast as possible. You wouldn't care, for instance, if the good, correct idea is yours or from someone else. Or even better, you should actually celebrate it when you are wrong, because then you can adopt the new better idea, which yields a better judgment. Nassim Taleb brilliantly summarizes this in just one line. You do not want to win an argument, you want to win. Would you like to get access to the finest nuggets from the best non-fiction books out there? If you do, you should check out Shortform. For disclosure, Shortform is not sponsoring this video, but there is an affiliate link in the video description. Why am I promoting Shortform? Well, my purpose through this channel is to collect valuable insights from videos of people that I deeply admire. Now imagine if you can easily get the most valuable insights from the best non-fiction books. This is what you can find on Shortform. A curated selection of the best books, and for each book you can find a carefully crafted summary in which all the book's relevant ideas are analyzed. This is why I absolutely love to read on Shortform and would recommend it to anyone. As Charlie Munger argues, to have a good and successful life, you have to create a mental model from all the big ideas, from all the big disciplines. And Shortform can be extremely helpful for this matter, as it literally extracts all the big ideas from the best non-fiction books, helping you to create this mental model in a faster and more efficient way. And with these valuable ideas becoming second nature to us over time, I think we will be able to build our best lives by standing on the shoulders of giants, as Sir Isaac Newton would put it. Now, the way I personally read on Shortform is to pick from my personal library any book that sparks my interest at that moment and start reading it. Typically, I will read sometimes in the morning after waking up, sometimes at night before going to sleep, and many times I will do a short read on the mobile phone app when, for instance, I'm in a restaurant alone waiting for the food or commuting somewhere. I created my personal library by quickly scanning through all the books on Shortform, and for any book to make it on my library, it has not only to interest me, but it also must fulfill at least one of two conditions. One is that I already know the author of the book from an interview in some podcast or any other source that I personally trust. And the other is that the book itself has been publicly recommended by people who I deeply admire. If you are interested in short form, you can visit my special link shortform.com/pickingnuggets. I will also leave the link in the description of the video. By joining with my affiliate link, you will be supporting this channel and you can have unlimited access for 5 days and a 20% discount on the annual subscription if you do choose to keep going after the end of your trial. Thanks for watching.